Yo, what is up, grind gang? How you living, baby? I hope you're living and loving your life today, and this video I hope will help you do more of that in the future. Today we're going to be kicking off a series that I'm titling The Hardest Lessons to Learn, and these are some of the concepts and ideas that I've come across in my 10 years or so of personal development that have really helped me find the most meaning and fulfillment in my life. You know, and I think that in the limited time that we have in this weird reality that we're all living through, I think that that's truly what most of us are looking for, you know, is really just enjoyment of the journey.
If this one thing is settled, everything is settled, isn't it? Yes? If you know how to walk through this world joyfully, what is the problem? Whatever you do is beautiful, isn't it?
Of this ride that we didn't ask to be on, but just found ourselves here, and we've been trying to make sense of that. And so I've been definitely trying to make sense of that over the last 10 years, and I've found some pretty key concepts and things that have really helped me. So I hope that this lesson will really be a benefit to you in the future and really help you manifest a more fulfilling, meaningful, and happy life for yourself along your journey. But they come at a cost.
Did you bring the toll? Confound your lousy toll, troll.
You know, that's why I titled it The Hardest Lessons to Learn, because there truly are very challenging things to execute on in reality, like in our everyday life and in the decisions and actions that we're taking and making.
It's the hardest thing I'll ever have to do.
It's a couple of different concepts, and today we're only gonna be talking about one, and we'll talk about some of the other ones in the future. But with that being said, this isn't like the hardest lesson to learn. Some people are gonna struggle with different concepts and ideas more than others.
Golf's not hard with Tiger Woods.
Having women and children to my left and right is a handy reminder that I need to keep my club face square. Now let's see how this tip works for Jill, a 27 handicapper from Logansport.
So this isn't really just like the hardest one, but it is one of the hardest lessons that I've learned, but that has been one of the most impactful lessons that I've learned. Okay, so this first lesson that we're going to be talking about today, I've learned to sum it up in this one phrase, and I love to say it, and I tell it to everybody. And that phrase is, the truth is undefeated, right? The truth is undefeated.
I'm unbeatable. I can't be beat. It's impossible. You condemn me. You can damage me. You're never ever gonna beat me.
In all life, in all times, in all challenges, any comer and contender that has tried to stand up against the truth has failed miserably. And I'm going to tell you why that is the case and how that is the case. And we're going to talk about why this idea of truth being undefeated, why it's so important, especially when we're trying to manifest a very awesome life or things in our life, and how that if we fail to understand this, we could really come into some serious mistakes along the way.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Okay, so first I want to start off by telling you guys a little bit about how I personally had to learn this lesson and why it was difficult for me to learn and the pitfalls I made, so that maybe you can learn from these. So in order to do that, we have to rewind in my life a good 10, maybe 15 years ago to a young 20, 21-year-old Rod, right? I was a young man who, when I grew up as a kid in high school, I really wasn't liked by girls, right? I was really late to puberty, right? And so I was always kind of seen as like the little brother. You know, I was very small in stature. I might have been only like 130 pounds. I was very skinny, very short, and I just looked young. You know, I still look young. I mean, most people don't even realize that I'm 35, and so that's a super asset now. But when I was a kid, it was the worst. You know, I grew up, you know, I joined the military, and in about 1920, I met my wife, you know, Jessica, and we got married. You know, we got married really young. We had our first baby at 20, and I really hadn't figured out who I was as a man yet, and really hadn't come into my own. And I was starting to grow, and I was starting to kind of look a little bit more handsome and be more attractive to women. And I didn't really know how to handle that attention, right? And so long story short, I was a mega cheater, right? I cheated on my wife constantly.
That was here when I got here.
Oh, he got caught. Those is condoms.
He looked at us like he knew he was stupid too.
I'm not proud to admit this, but it's just the truth. And we'll talk about later about speaking the truth and just living the truth. But that's who I was, and that's what I was doing. And I would try to cover that up, as most guys do when they're cheating, right? And I was actually really good at it. I actually got away with it really well. I used my manipulation skills to really talk my way out of things, gaslight her, make her feel like she was crazy and all that stuff that cheaters do, right?
Hey, my name's Caden, and I'm a professional gaslighter. Women love to be kept guessing. Babe, you're honestly being paranoid.
Call me paranoid.
I never said that.
You literally just did.
For every woman that I convince is crazy, I add another ring. Oh, I'm the asshole. Have you been talking to your friends again? You know she's only saying that because she's jealous of what we have.
And for a long time, I felt like I was getting away with it. I really felt like there's nothing, wrong with this. Like, she doesn't know, and we're happy-ish, And so I really felt like this is okay and that I was fine as long as I didn't get caught, right? It wasn't really impacting my relationship. And one day, I kind of matured, I guess, and I started to learn a little bit about myself and the actions I was taking and how they affect my reality. And I started to notice how it was impacting me. Even though I wasn't getting caught and it wasn't impacting me externally, it really was starting to weigh on me internally. I was having a hard time like sleeping at night, right? And the actions I was taking, I know, were always under this shroud or cloud of like fear.
I'm afraid, all right? You want to hear me say it? You want to break me down? All right, I'm afraid.
Every action I was taking was like, oh, I hope I don't get caught. Even things subconsciously, like constantly monitoring my phone or being very protective of my phone at the off chance that she might find it or catch it or get it, right? And even when I stopped cheating and I never really told her about the cheating that I had done in the past, it would just weigh on me consciously, this idea that even though I wasn't caught right now, that I could potentially be caught. And that was really when I started to learn the effects of living incongruently. I just started to learn that how me living in this incongruence and in this kind of fake reality was really weighing on my decisions, my mood. I was subconsciously very negative and aggressive towards my wife because I was dealing with this guilt that I had internally from making these very poor decisions.
Cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the mental stress people feel when they hold two contradictory ideas in their mind at the same time. When the ideas have ethical dimensions, this discomfort is called moral dissonance. Most people think of themselves as ethical. But studies show that most people also frequently lie and cheat in ways they would not want others to know about or see. This conflict between their moral self-image and their immoral actions creates cognitive dissonance, and most people, consciously or unconsciously, want to resolve this psychological discomfort.
It really started to ruin our relationship and marriage, and so I had to go on a journey to really clean that up, and it was really one of the most difficult things I ever had to do. I had to admit to all of the mistakes that I had made in the past and all the decisions that I was making that were really hurting our relationship, and definitely not that guy anymore. And she stuck through that and saw me through that. And so we have a really strong, awesome relationship now. We've been together 15 years, and it's been amazing, but it was so challenging in those times. Lots of fighting, lots of late night arguing, throwing things at each other, and just all around misery, as most relationships are, if there's some type of underlying guilt or shame that is built into the relationship that hasn't been resolved. Okay, so why is the truth undefeated? Why has it never been beaten? The reason that truth is undefeated is, first of all, it's immutable. It's like gravity, right? Like, the truth is the truth. I do believe that there is an objective reality. Now, I don't think that we get to interact with that objective reality, right? Because we live a very subjective experience, meaning I'm projecting onto this objective reality my own beliefs, my own ideas, my past, my own sensitivities, all that shit, right? And so I'm always experiencing things through a little skewed lens. But I do believe that objective reality exists, right? So there is the truth, and we all know that it exists, right? We all know what the truth is, But through that subjectiveness, we try to sometimes skew it in our favor, right? We try to bend that truth or break that truth or whatever, and we try to manipulate it to fit our own needs. But it doesn't work like that, right? It's like trying to bend gravity to your own needs. It's immutable. It is doing its own thing. The truth is there and it exists. And when we live outside of that, or when we try to bend or skew that, what we're really doing is we're creating an alternate kind of dimension or an alternate reality that's living in parallel with that first one, right? And that has consequences.
You still think there will be no consequences, Strange? No price to pay. We broke our rules just like her. The bill comes due. Always.
And those consequences are not always external, right? Or they're not always immediately recognizable. It's not somebody else slapping you on the hand or somebody else coming and getting you in trouble or yelling at you. It's sometimes we punish ourselves internally. Your subconscious is recording every single action, every single input, every single sound, everything that happens to you in your life. You are there for it.
I'm watching you, Wazowski. Always watching. Whew, she's nuts.
You know, right? And so I used to laugh because I was like, even though they might not know the truth, you know the truth.
What, the truth? You can't handle the truth.
And as much as we like to pretend that we can disassociate from that truth and ignore that, it's there. You know, it's like a thorn in the side, and it might be covered up and stuff. But over time, it's going to create this nasty infection, and it's going to grow and it's going to fester underneath the surface until it's eventually going to come into manifesting negative things in your life because of this underlying subconscious incongruence.
Because that's what we do. We just shove it down and learn not to say the truth and then not to feel it, and then you don't feel anything at all. And everything sounds like you're at the bottom of a pool and you deny until denial is the only thing holding us together. And so when the pressure gets too high, it collapses like that stupid sinkhole out there and just caves in.
And that's what I learned in my story. I told you, it really started to change who I was as a person because I was living this alternate reality. Another good example, you're gay. How many times have we seen this? You're gay. The truth is you're gay. You like men.
Why are you gay?
Who says I'm gay?
You are gay.
Okay. I don't know. You're probably looking at me. You're like, I don't fucking like, you know, you're already like your ego's triggered immediately. But I'm just saying, somebody out there right now, they're in the closet, right? I don't care. You know, I don't care what society says and all of those things. If you're out there and you're living that lie, if you're gay and you're trying to pretend like you're not gay because the church told you to, or because life, you know, you're worried about what people will think about you and this and that, it doesn't matter. You're not going to find peace and happiness in this, like, I'm going to pretend to be straight until I'm straight, because the truth is you're gay. Right? So it's like, it doesn't always happen in this, like I said, lying, right? It's not always about lying. Sometimes it really manifests in like the authenticity that we're living out in our own lives, right? And our ability to just be truthful and honest with ourselves about who we are, what we like, what we don't like, and what our realities are in that aspect. And I think that that's how this principle plays out most in our lives, is we end up living in these masks or in these alternate egos and identities to try and pacify everybody else and everything around us, and try in a way to manipulate this like peace and congruence in our lives by living outside of who we truly are. And you can see how that just creates all this facade and fakeness, and it's hard to keep that act up, and it's hard to pretend to be something that you're not. It's like you start manifesting from that masked place, that egoic place, and so you start manifesting people who are not in alignment with who you truly are, so you have to continue to keep up the lie. And so you get a bunch of things that are not you, that you don't actually want, that you don't actually like, are not bringing you peace, not bringing you congruence or happiness in your life, right? So this kind of leads me to my next point, right? Which is like, you have to do a lot of internal work on this journey of personal development, and a lot of that work is overcoming your ego, right? It's like moving more towards your spirit and living from your spirit, who loves the truth, because your spirit is made of the same thing that truth is made of. It's forever, it's indefinite, it's infinite, and it exists on that plane that God level plane, that it's not tied to whether somebody likes you or doesn't like you or thinks you're a good person or not. It just is, right? And so if you're living from that place, it's easy to kind of take on this stuff. And that's why I'm trying to get people to take more of those actions, because that moves you more towards your spirit, which is kind of like the ultimate place of manifestation, right? Like that's truly where the power of manifestation comes from. It's in your spirit. It's not in your ego though. And so the ego does that because it wants to protect somebody else's feelings or wants to avoid conflict. It's easier to make those little lies and those little fibs and those little like manipulations of the truth. And it might help in the short term. That's why we do it, guys. It does help in the short term. So in that, you're going to avoid that conflict.
Do you like me? Am I okay? Do you like me?
Another great example, right? You're 30 minutes, an hour late to something, a function, job, work, and this and that. Isn't this just so easy? Traffic. Oh, yeah, I had a thing come up. I had to get over that, man, just because the truth is undefeated, right? So it's just like, I just learned over time, like, I would rather just tell people like, yo, I'm behind. I woke up late. I didn't want to come. I just didn't want to come. People are like, why didn't you show up? I'm not going to come up with some dumb excuse. You know, you make up some lie that later on people will be like, oh, I thought you said you was at your sister's house. And you're like, oh, I mean, I was, but then I had, you know, and now you got to tell another lie to get over your other lie. And that cycle continues down until all of a sudden you're just living this completely spun out of control reality.
You are out of control. You're out of control, Twiggy.
Who would you have more respect for? The person who just says, hey man, look, I really wanted to come, but I just wasn't feeling it. So I just said, nah, I'm just sat on the couch and I watched TV. I hope y'all had a good time, right? Even though you're like, dang man, I can't believe my friend didn't come out, but you still feel like, yo, but that's a stand-up dude. At least he told me the truth, as compared to somebody else who lies and then you find out later that they lied. It's gonna weed certain people. Like, you are gonna lose relationships. There are gonna be certain people who can't stand that truth.
You can't handle the truth.
Or that hurts their feelings and things. But are those the people you want to associate with anyways? Probably not, right? You would rather, especially if you're a person of integrity, you want to fuck with other people who are people of integrity. And how are you going to manifest those people, or how are you going to attract those people to you if you're a liar? You're not, right? In business, if you're starting business and you're working in business, would you rather attract people who are liars or people who tell the truth? So how are you going to do that? You have to tell the truth, right? And so it's in all of these actions and all these things. And the last thing I want to leave you with, because I don't want this to be discouraging, because it is hard, I want you to know you're going to fail. I still lie, okay? I still lie. But when I do that, I don't pacify. Like, my belief just screams at me. It constantly tries to hold me to the standard of being like, nah, I can't believe you lied, bro. Like, why are you lying? Just tell them the truth. Just do the right thing, right? And we all fall to our low self. But, one thing I try to do most in this, like that I try to be 97% on with, right? I can't always be, nobody's perfect, but sometimes I'll lie to other people, and sometimes I will shirk that reality in the external. I always tell myself the truth. If I tell myself a lie, I don't say, oh, it's fine, man, it was just a white lie. And I try and I'm like, yo, you just fucked up right there. Let's not do that again. Let's feel the pain. Let's feel the discomfort of punishing ourselves. I'm not saying beat yourself up about it.
What the hell are you doing? I'm kicking my ass. Do you mind?
Days or anything like that, right? But acknowledge it. Acknowledge the fact that, yo, I'm not being honest, and at least be honest with yourself. And when you're at least honest with yourself, you can maintain that internal congruence and that internal trust with yourself. A lot of times people can't even trust themselves. You can't just trust your decisions. You can't trust your actions and your thoughts. People are like, well, I don't know how to trust my thoughts and all that stuff. And that's because you spend so much time lying to yourself that you don't even know if you're telling the truth or not, right? You're living out your own lies. The worst place to be is I lied to myself, right? Right? Like, how could you even make any progress or change anything in your life if you can't even be honest with yourself about where you're actually at, what you do well, what you suck at. I'm gonna tell y'all right now, since this, I'm not like, oh, altruist, I always make the right decisions, always do the right thing. I'd still do fucked up shit, right? You're still gonna do fucked up. Everybody's always gonna do fucked up shit. That's a part of being human and it's part of life. But I'll tell you what, one thing I do. When I'm doing fucked up shit, I don't lie about it. I do not lie. I'll tell a motherfucker straight up, I'm being fucked up right now. Like, right? Like I'm doing some dirt right now. Like, and I'm doing that with just a conscious decision because again, it's the truth, right? It's not always like I said, you're not always going to make the right decisions. But I think that as a person of integrity, even if you're going to choose to do something that's fucked up, then at least own that, right? Because then you can at least maintain internal peace and congruence with yourself. And then now you can also make those decisions based on like, is this something I can handle? Like, can I handle being this person and taking these actions? You see this all the time, mostly when people are committing crimes, right? Don't you hate to see somebody who commits some type of crime and then they go and they rat out all their friends or they tell on that's why everybody hates a fucking rat, because you made that choice. You chose to go do that. You took on the risk and you got caught. So now own that, live that, right? Like accept those consequences in reality because you chose to take those actions instead of trying to defer and lie and push it off on other people and worm and skirt away, right? And so when you're living by integrity, you see how it really shapes your actions and your decisions. So for me, if I'm gonna do some fuck shit, right, I have to really weigh that. I can't just like do that willy-nilly, because if I'm gonna do it, I have to accept all those consequences. I have to know those risks and be like, yes, I'm willing to take this risk, because I'm not going to just try to make decisions that I can get the reward from and shirk away the risk. And so, you know, if you're gonna lie outwards, which you probably will sometimes still, just whatever you do, try not to lie to yourself and try to just maintain that internal integrity and congruence between your spirit, your mind, and your body, because that's where we really unlock this next level of manifestation. You know, as we've had this conversation, you know, it's probably been hard for some of us to have this conversation because we've been living that lie and it's difficult. But the way forward is to just start telling the truth, you know, straight up. It's pretty simple. I would encourage you to go back and resolve the past as well. If you've ever been familiar with the 12-step program, right? If you're kind of trying to break alcohol and this and that, one of the most important steps, and one of the steps that people say they see the most result from, is the part where you go back and you make amends for all the fucked up shit you did while you were on drugs or while you were on alcohol, all the people that you hurt and all the lies and the deceit and the evil things you did, right? They tell you, you have to literally call these people up, find these people, sit down and tell them like, hey, look, I'm sorry. You know, I want to take accountability. I was out of my head. I was doing drugs. I was doing all this. What I did to you was wrong and I'm sorry, right? I would encourage that for everybody. And I had to do this through all my life. I had to go back into all these relationships where I had really damaged them through deceit. And now I'm gonna tell you, this doesn't mean I was like trying to reignite those relationships or be with those people or be around those people or make friends. None of that. It was just for me to find that internal congruence so I could let go of some of that shame and that guilt. I had to really just own up to that. And, you know, of course I wanted that to help those people, but again, it wasn't really about them because they didn't know I lied in the first place or wasn't being, you know, so it's like, it's more for you. But I'm just saying, I think that's important. Lastly, I just want you to know it's going to take courage, right? That's why it's hard. It takes courage. But don't you want to be somebody who has courage? Don't you want to be brave? You know, I love the quote, courage is not the lack of fear. It's the ability to act in spite of it. And so even though it feels like you're so scared, well, what if my girl leaves me? Or what if my boss fires me? Or what if? Maybe that does happen. I'm not going to say it doesn't happen to you. Maybe it does. But wouldn't you rather just move forward with that clean slate, knowing that you're fresh, that you don't have anything to hide, that you're just completely open and accepting of life and in that vibration of peace and congruence, than being this like, oh, I got a good job, but I'm still afraid every day that I'm going to get fired. It's just not worth it, right? So I think that what I found personally through that whole thing is, yes, it was difficult to have those conversations, but in the short term, in the long term, I gained more respect, a deeper appreciation in those relationships, and all around it just worked out a lot better for me because I did the hard choice, you know? I've found that 90% of this journey of personal development is making the hard decisions, you know, doing the hard things that are not easy in the short term, but they just pay dividends over the long run. So, yo, that's one of the hardest lessons learned. I hope that you learn it, man, because like I said, I truly don't think I've never seen anybody actually live the most fulfilling life that they could be living without adhering to this principle. But tell me if you found it to be different in your life or in somebody else's life. And I'd love to discuss that stuff with you guys in the comments and come to some understanding about that stuff. So I hope this is helpful to you. If it was, go ahead and like it, subscribe, you know, share it with some other people. You know how the social media game go, right? Share some shit that's valuable because it might be valuable to somebody else. And people always ascribe when they receive something valuable, they will ascribe it to you, right? So they won't just ascribe it to me, they'll ascribe it to you too. They'll be like, man, I can't believe you turned me on to this game. I appreciate you. So, you know, you can get those little cool points right off of that, but only if it was helpful to you. If it wasn't, you know, keep on going. But I will see you in the next video right